Oh, hey.
Oh, now I can see your photos and we're being recorded. Oh, how nice.
Hi, Carol.
Oh, hello, good.
Ah, Dennis.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. There's Bill. Oh, I see Bill. Oh.
Carolyn, you're muted. You have to unmute.
Okay, sorry, we are going to start the meeting. Welcome to this launching of this new book, Collaboration Mission in South Sudan. Very welcome. It's clear that there are a lot of friends here. I would like to let you know that there is a translation, is English, Spanish. So welcome to all of you. I am Emily Turu, Mari's brother, now the president of Solidarity with South Sudan, and also secretary of the Union of Superiors General. And I would like to welcome also Sister Pat Murray, who is the secretary of the UISG. Welcome, Pat. How are you? Sister Pat, as you know, is the secretary of the Union of the International Union of Superior Generals, and also she was at the beginning of this marvelous project. And it's interesting that we are both the secretaries of the two unions, under this umbrella is how the project was born. And you were there at the beginning, Pat.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What do you think about this marvelous book?
I think it's wonderful. And congratulations to all involved in the launch of this collaborative mission in South Sudan towards a new paradigm. Because I think, looking back, I was there at the beginning. I was part of the group that made the first visit to South Sudan in 2006. There were 6 of us representing the male and female religious orders. And we were there because of the invitation of the bishops of what was then Southern Sudan, asking us to come and see what religious orders could contribute to the rebuilding of the country. And I suppose, Amelia, one thing that struck me was just the reality of the southern part of Sudan at that time. There's a wonderful line from the American writer Willa Cather's. She was talking about Nebraska, and she said, "There's not a country there, but only the material from which a country can be built." And that's the sensation I had in South Sudan. In visiting Southern Sudan, we went from one diocese to the next. You saw the devastation of war, and you saw what was being called for and needed for, and no one religious order could do it, could respond. And therefore, there was a clear sense that something new was needed. We needed to collaborate together. I suppose the saying goes, it takes a village to rear a child. I think today it takes intercongregational collaboration to respond to the enormous needs that we face today in our world, and particularly the needs of South Sudan as the country builds the new future. And that's why I'm so happy to see so many people whom I know, who were part of the journey, many of whom who are still on the journey, and whom I don't know. So I just want to congratulate everybody, because I do think this is a response to the wonderful Congress that the two unions held in 2004, Passion for Christ and Passion for Humanity. And, that Congress really called for a new paradigm of mission and new ways of collaborating, open and flexible collaboration between congregations. So I think solidarity with South Sudan and this book in telling the story, because you have to tell the story of the past and the present, which somehow gives us signs towards the future of this journey that we as religious congregations are engaged in today. So I think the launch of the book is very important because it traces the memory. And I'm sure that each of us, those involved and those who care about South Sudan, and the many to whom really this will be a new venture, those who read the book, it gives them material to reflect on, both at a personal level, to see the journey of many, either individuals or groups or committees, people who participated for a short or a long time, but all of whom have contributed to creating something that responds to contemporary need. So I feel it's a model for all of us, and a wonderful memory and a record. There are too many people to remember, but I think I'd like to remember, just as I conclude, Sister Maureen McBride, who was the first president, Superior General at that time, of the Sisters of of Our Lady of the Mission, and to really affirm her leadership. She's no longer with us. She died before her time, but I think we owe a particular gratitude to her and that initial group on the executive team and the vision that they had for this initiative. And I think it's in taking, everyone has played a step in making this vision a reality. And the book captures that. And thanks to Carolyn Bools and to Lazar Stanislaus for being the editors of this great text. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Pat. You mentioned Caroline, is one of the persons that probably you know very well, Pat, and that you met there. Okay, welcome, Sister Caroline.
Thank you.
You are, as Sister Pat mentioned, one of the two editors with
Yes.
Father Lazar.
Yes.
But you mentioned also in the introduction a lot of people that have collaborated. It has been a collective work that.
For sure.
Yes,
For sure.
yes.
Yes. Sister Margaret Scott, let me read her journal. That Sisters of Our Lady of the Missions, 5 of them, came at once to Remendes in 2008. And Margaret was keeping a journal for the rest of that year, 2008.
Okay.
And that was full of lots of experiences that she had, the community had.
Yeah. Excellent. So I give you the microphone, Sister Caroline, and
thank you.
tell us what you like to share with us.
Oh, thanks very much. I'm so glad that Pat spoke of the Congress of the Men and Women Religious. That was the first time that such a thing was held. And to me, it seemed like a Pentecost event, because when I came to join Solidarity with South Sudan it was Halloween of 2011. And I lived in different communities in Malakal and Rumbek and Wau and Yambio. And the people that I was living with, the men and women religious, so many of them were superiors or had been superiors and were influenced by that Pentecostal Charismatic Congress. And that experience of being in communities that are intercongregational, men and women, different ages, international, was really a wonderful experience. It was also challenging because we come from so many different experiences. But we prayed together, we tried to cook together, and the ministry was together, to have recreation together, community meetings. It was a real wonderful growing experience and broadening experience. I would also like to remember another very important person besides Sister Maureen McBride is Sister Kathy Arata, who also is now in heaven. But when Bishop Ghazi of Tambo-Yambio Diocese came to Rome, only a few weeks after that Congress of Passion for Christ, Passion for Humanity, he met with the Joint Men and Women Justice, Peace, Integrity of Creation Committee, and Sister Kathy Arata was part of that committee. And the way that Bishop Ghazi was inviting the congregations to come to help, because it was realized that no one congregation would be able to carry on or meet the needs that were so evident from that first meeting. And Kathy Arata was with Pat Murray of that committee of 6 who went to see what could be done and where were the needs. And when they came back to Rome and gave their report, there was such a generous response of the superiors general to try and work together to form a committee that they called themselves the Southern Steering Committee, to try and encourage a way of responding. And there was such a response that 9 congregations just in that first year of 2006 promised personnel, and 17 congregations promised finances. And so then there was another investigative committee of only 5, but to try and see, narrowing it down, where should we have a teacher training college? Where should we have the health training? Because those 2 needs were so evident. And so Malakal was designated as the place for the teacher training of college because it was the neediest of all the dioceses. They were all needy. And then Wow in the Northwest already had a building that was beautifully constructed by I think it was the German contractors, and had graduated 1 class of nurses in 1983, just before the war started, and the congregation of sisters there had to return to India, and the place was occupied by the Arabs until the agreement was made that there would be a possibility for the South to become independent. And then squatters came into that building, but it was a very well sturdily made building. And so they said, that's where we should have the Health Training Institute. And then when 2008 came, having the thought that the De La Salle should be the lead congregation for the teacher training because of their educational experience, 3 De La Salle brothers and Sister Nanette DaCosta, a Salesian sister, in the beginning of 2008, they went to Malakal to look and see, where is this college going to be built? What are the needs? And it was so evident that there needed to be some English classes because the system of education in the Southern Sudan had been Arabic. And so the teachers were teaching, in what teachers there were teaching in Arabic. So to do the teacher training, which Solidarity was going to do in English, they needed to have English classes. So they started that. without even having any buildings, just wherever there happened to be some structure. And then Sister Esperanza, the Comboni sisters, early on in 2008, she went to look at the building there in Wow and to try and find where's the deed, the land deed for this, that it belongs to the Catholic Church and not just to the government. There was a group of Comboni sisters who had been in Wow even during the war, and Esperance was able to live with them while searching in the mess that was there in Wow, looking for the land deed. And then, as I said before, the 5 sisters of Our Lady of the Missions who came to Remenses. And there was thought that, oh, Remenses would be another area, being in the south, that would be able to help with teacher training. But as the Spirit was working and as we were all trying to search what is it that God is wanting, it was seen that Remenses was not a good place for teacher training because it's out in the rainforest and the roads are terrible. Oh, the roads aren't very good at all. And that Yambio isn't so far away. And that would be a better place. There was an airstrip there in Yambio. So Yambio became the second site for a teacher training college. So the whole movement and searching for what will be helpful in helping the South Sudanese to gain the skills, to be empowered, to be good teachers, to be good nurses, it was a growing, the work of the Holy Spirit, actually. And the question in the beginning about, well, how is this teacher training going to be? Because every bishop wanted to have teacher training college. They all needed teachers. And it was thought, okay, maybe Malakal will be the hub and the other dioceses will be satellites. But then it was realized when Bill Furman became the director of teacher education that wasn't going to work out because Malakal was in the northeast. It's certainly not in the center like Rumbek is. So the changes were that there would be in-service courses. And when I went to South Sudan, I was at first teaching there in Malakal and learning so much about the students there were day students because we were right by the town on the Nile River. And they were coming for classes. We had small classes then. But then the arrangement was made that sometimes the tutors would go, we went to Agok in the north on the border with Sudan. And these were students, we had about 190 who wanted to be trained as teachers. So we worked at first on the English because they were Arabic speaking, and then following the course of training to become primary school teachers. And so after some number of years through those in-service courses, they did graduate. So that was wonderful. Then the war came, December 2013, and we thought that we would just leave Malakal temporarily, but it didn't work out that way. And we had to leave permanently. So that beautiful college, a nice library. Anyway, it's maybe it will become a pastoral center for the Diocese of Malakal. But our staff, we went to Rumbek and we were helping with in-service courses for teachers in that area. That's in the center of South Sudan. And then we still couldn't go back. We kept thinking, oh, we're going back to Malakal. No. So then I went to Wow, and I had the experience of living in community in Wow. with Dorothy Dixon, who did a lot, after Maria Martinelli, who are getting the Nurses Training Center organized. So as to have certified nurses and midwives. So, and I was able to work in the library there. I wasn't teaching about medicine, but helping in the library. So, but to live in that area of WOW was also a wonderful experience. And then I was invited to go teach in Yambio with Sister Margaret Scott, who had lent me her journal to know how Our Lady of the Mission Sisters had started. And there in Yambio, the sisters were still in Remenze, and Sister Rosa was the sister who spearheaded the development of a farm and helping the people who, through so much war and threats of war and the Lord's Resistance Army terrors, had forgotten how to really be good farmers because they were struggling with all their energy to stay alive. But Rosa helped, and now there's a sustainable agricultural project there in Remenze, and the Ambio Teachers Training College is able to buy food from the sustainable agriculture there in Remenze. And I think I'm almost finished with my time. So let me say also that the other prong of solidarity with South Sudan is the pastoral one. And it was slow in getting started. One thing was, although in the beginning, the De La Salle brothers would spearhead with education and the Comboni sisters to spearhead with nurses training, the health training, who would spearhead with pastoral. And it took some time to figure that out. But again, at the end of 2009 and then 2010, Kathy Arada became the director of the pastoral program. And with the Catholic Relief Services, developed 101 days of prayer, which was celebrated and prayed by and appreciated by the Catholic bishops and by the religious leaders of different congregations throughout Southern Sudan in preparation for the referendum and then the independence on July 11th. And now, today, under the leadership of Father Jim, who's the current executive director, there is a whole pastoral center that has been built across the Nile River from Juba in a place called Kit, and it's the Good Shepherd Center where catechists can be trained, and the diocesan priests have opportunities for workshops, and other groups have like parish councils to learn how to do parish councils. So that's an important prong of solidarity with South Sudan. And I think I finished my time, and please keep South Sudan in your prayers.
Thank you, Sister Caroline. I had the impression of being sitting with you around the fire, listening beautiful stories. By the way, you have an excellent memory. Congratulations. I didn't introduce you at the beginning. Sister Caroline is member of the congregations of the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur.
Yes.
And right now you are in Kenya, is that right?
That's right, yes, in Western Kenya.
After being 9 years in the project, in Solidarity with South Sudan.
Yes, they were very wonderful years.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you very much, Caroline, for your sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we will continue now with Sister Teresa Okura. Sister Teresa, welcome.
Thank
Sister,
you.
yeah.
To hear me?
Yes, Sister Teresa is a Nigerian sister of the Society of the Holy Child Jesus and Professor New Testament and Gender Hermeneutics. And she has written a lot of studies, but in the book, her collaboration is about scriptural reflections on the context of collaborative mission in South Sudan. So what can share you about what you wrote there in the book, Sister Teresa?
Okay, I just want to thank you very much. Thank the people who conceived of the project of Solidarity in South Sudan, and then thank all those who have come to participate, and most importantly, what has brought us together is this book project. So thank you very much for conceiving it and producing it.
Okay.
My point, what I want to share is not so much about the book, but about the event. To share something that will help us to better, perhaps, situate and appreciate the book. And so we are launching a book about solidarity with the people of South Sudan. And these people, the various religious congregations, as we have heard Sister beautifully giving us the story, consecrated persons who wrote this book. And the book is about a people, I repeat. So the book gives us a window, a message to the people about whom it is written. And you will have to bear with me because I'm managing two devices. So please just bear with me as it goes. So the book further gives us biblical, apart from talking about the people and the history, it gives us some background information, different reflections on it. So while we joyfully launch the book with great appreciation of the information it gives about the people, we need to remember that everything in the book is about the people, the flesh and blood people of South Sudan, the heritage of their land, their multi-dimensional resources, and so forth, both human and material. So the point here is that the book is in function of the people of South Sudan, and on behalf of whom the project was undertaken. So for me, the most important or the primary function of this book is to invite us who may not be physically present to participate in the project of South Sudan, as those who have been there, to invite us to be in solidarity with the people. What I'm saying is that it's not just read the book and be happy with what has been produced, but that the book is invitation, is inviting us to be in solidarity with the people. I compare it to a film. We can watch the film and we can be admire the characters. The characters in the film can affect our lives, but it will not affect the lives of the people in the film, because the people in the film are not real, but the people of South Sudan are real. And what it's inviting us to do, the book is looking for a new paradigm. And from what has been said, the projects that have been made is very laudable. There's no question about that. Many people have lost their lives in the project in trying to be in solidarity with the people of South Sudan. They have lost their lives. So where do we come in? Where do we come in this project? And come in collaboratively, come in as brothers and sisters, come in as people to whom this project really belongs, to whom who are brothers and sisters of the people of South Sudan. As Pope Francis says, because of the interconnectedness of the world, Fratelli Tutti, and Laudato Si. So what do we have then to help us, perhaps not just to be in, we have had the project of solidarity with South Sudan, PSSS, but to be in solidarity with the people of South Sudan, SPSS. So what criteria then do we use, do we have to help us to do this? What are the assets, I should say? And I have listed about four dimensions. The first is God's solidarity with us human beings in and through Christ. We are still celebrating the octave of Easter, the climactic event of God's solidarity with us human beings. We chose to impoverish ourselves through the sin of our first parents, and yet God didn't leave us there. First, he promised he would come to us, and then at birth, he came in the person of Jesus. I will put enmity between you and the woman to make sure that you don't defeat them anymore. And he did that by becoming human in person. The word became flesh and dwelt among us, not just pitching his tent among us, but inserting himself physically into our reality, becoming like us in all things but sin. Of course, sin being separation from God, and God couldn't separate God from God's self. So by doing that, through the passion, death, and resurrection, God has made us substantially, consubstantially, if I may use the word, God's children. Are you still hearing me?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you, but no, yes,
Okay.
yes, it's okay.
Something flashed on my screen. I didn't know whether I was shut off.
Yeah.
So substantially and consubstantially, we have become the children of God. And even though we may go astray in the process, like the prodigal son, the fact remains that as children, we cannot be alienated. Slaves can go away, hired servants can go away. But the reality of being a son or a daughter, a child of the family, nothing can, and all that. So Jesus then coming, his relationship with us progressed. He says, I call you no longer servants, slaves, I call you friends. But when he rose from the dead, he called us his siblings. The message to Mary of Magdala, John 20, 17. Go and tell my brethren that I am ascending to my God and your God, and to my Father and your Father. So that is the core of God's solidarity with us. And the references are there. He has raised us with him, installed him at God's right hand, and made us one with him, high above all principalities and powers and so forth. So if we are in solidarity with the people of South Sudan, the question is, how does this solidarity lift them up from their predicament? It's a question we need to think about. How does it lift them up so that they can sit at the same table with us, they can sit at the same time with us, they can be authors, managers of their own situation? I would say, take up your mat and walk, take up your life and live. Don't sit on there. Today, we are very, very aware of the situation in South Sudan, and we know what the world has done to be in solidarity with them. So the people who conceived of the project have done enough, they have done much. But my point is to those of us who are listening, who are going to buy the book and read, will we just say this is a beautiful book we read and it ends there? Or is this book really, in receiving the book, is it going to draw us into flesh and blood solidarity with the people of South Sudan? How do we do that? In what ways do we do that? So that is the first thing we have, is the example of God and the example of God in Jesus. And then, of course, I can't finish Jesus without talking about the Eucharist, because you nourish somebody to eat your food and to become like you. I mean, I'm talking in symbols. Jesus didn't just change water and wine into his body and blood, as we do sacramentally in the Eucharist. He gave himself in the form of bread and wine, something that we can eat and we can enjoy. So the question is, how do we give of ourselves to these people of South Sudan so that they can eat, drink, enjoy, and have life in its fullness? And we talk about Jesus's mission and how he brought in the disciples. He succeeded so well that even today, it's the church that is dominant in our thinking. Though Pope Francis is trying to change that. It's the church. We forget that we are not the center. We forget that we are not the be all and the end all. But that just shows Jesus' own example in trying to be in solidarity with us. And then, for instance, in John 13, which we just celebrated, the washing of the feet, that action was not to cleanse them, because it says in 15, you have been cleansed by the word I have spoken to you. His washing of their feet, as he tells Peter, if I do not wash you, you will have no part in me. And the part in me is the service. I have given you an example that as I have done, you do the same. And we see how he enabled the disciples that by the time he finished, they were completely in charge. I think I have to move from there. So the other asset we have is that we are outsiders in the sense that we are not South Sudanese. And because we are not South Sudanese, we don't get caught up in the different politics, in the different tribal wars. We stand in a much higher, better position to be able to empower the people without personal interest. And without taking parties, without parties. So that should be a great asset to us. My question then is, how do we have been doing it, but we're looking for a new paradigm. In what way can we collaborate more? Can we collaborate more together, not just those of us listening here, those in our congregations, to bring the actors, to bring the subjects of the people of South Sudan to become the actors, to bring the different warring groups to see that what they are doing is bad for them, to come to the consciousness that they need to drop their arms, their divisions, and join hands and be the people that God intended them to be. And my third point has to do with Jesus says, for their sake, I consecrate myself so that they may be consecrated in the truth. Yeah, consecration at baptism, consecration in the religious life. How do we do that? How does this launching of the book help us to really feel in ourselves that we are consecrated for mission, and the people know that we have consecrated them so that they too become consecrated in the truth, so that they don't always have to sit there and be recipients, sit there and receive the handouts, sit there and look for benefactors and donors. That's not what Jesus did. He did to us. And to know that they also have the responsibility, and South Sudan is mostly Christian, to proclaim the gospel. And of course, they will proclaim the gospel by moving away from their own divisions into the gospel of Jesus Christ. So the team project is very, very important. And a diverse consecrations, whether it is at baptism or in the religious life, should help us to do that. My last point, because I don't know how much time I have, is the advocacy of prayer. And I want to talk advocacy and prayer. Advocacy in the sense that I hesitate to say this, but it is true. A number of our nations, those of us who are listening here, have a stake in the impoverishment of South Sudan. They don't produce guns, but they have them. And they use while people are cutting away the wealth from their lands, it is said in the book, they are given the guns to shoot each other. So how are we in such solidarity with them that we deal with our nations, we deal with our governments, we deal with those who are producing the arms, we did even sometimes the NGOs have a stake in the impoverishment of the people. So that's the aspect of advocacy. How do we do that? We need to bring that into the discourse. We need to bring that into the aspect of our being in solidarity with South Sudan, so that while the people are struggling, they don't get bombarded like it's happening in Ukraine. In Ukraine, everybody is aware of that. And people are trying to help the people of Ukraine to resist. But when it comes to South Sudan, the donations, the projects, it doesn't really reach, it doesn't really catch. So if we're looking for a new paradigm, we have to take the advocacy seriously so that these people who are so rich and richly endowed don't continue to be impoverished, and we continue to help them till their kingdom come. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that we need to locate a project of solidarity with the people of South Sudan in God's own project. It's God's own solidarity with humanity, because we are part and parcel of that. But if we don't do that, if we don't really do that, we can continue, the effort will continue, the help will continue, even the projects of trying to help them to farm, but they will always be looking up to us. They will never be equal to us. Jesus raised us up with him, seated us with him at God's right hand, far above all principalities and powers, with the dignity and the worth of the children of God. And as Hebrews says, everybody, you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, where every citizen has the dignity of the firstborn. How do we do that? So that in this new paradigm, we can think together, we can plan together, we can dream together to really helping these people to be not just recipients, maybe to be even helpers, donors of other people. So in conclusion, brothers and sisters, I want to say thank you for coming to participate in this project of solidarity with the people of South Sudan. In this way, the project of solidarity gets a new paradigm and a new character. So it's not just a project for solidarity with South Sudan, but a project of solidarity with the people of South Sudan. And in whatever way, we need to listen to the Lord in whatever way he is directing us to do this. The year 2022 is the mid-year of the Synod on Synodality. And what the Synod on Synodality does is inviting us to work together as equals on a common starting point. And the common starting point is Jesus of Nazareth. It's a baptism into Christ, where nobody has an age over the other. So the collaborative ministry in South Sudan towards a new paradigm is very timely, is very energizing, is very exciting, but I think for it to happen, we need to take the necessary action. So may we commit ourselves to work together as equals, brothers and sisters, fratelli tutti, as we partner with the people, of South Sudan to enable and empower them to take up their lives and live, to have the fullness of that life which God destined for them, and which their land, their resources, and their place in God and Christ richly offers them. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
Thank you, Sister Teresa. You offer to us a good number of challenges to keep thinking. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I just would like to tell you that if you would like to ask questions, to those who are talking, you can use the chat. If you address the question to a concrete person, you can say question for Sister Teresa or Sister Maria, whatever, and you write your question there. And at the very end, we'll open this time for sharing around your questions. So next is Sister Maria. Sister Maria Simperman is a religious of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, is Associate Professor of Theological Ethics and Founding Director of the Center for the Study of Consecrated Life at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you.
Maria, you have also a reflection there in the last part, talking about towards a new paradigm. And you use a beautiful image there of flowers. What is that?
The image of things being in bud. And actually, Brother Emily, I loved your preface because you spoke about this project really being a beginning. And I think 15 years later, there's still budding happening. And I think that I just kept reading that and saying so much is in bud, meaning just as some buds start, others have not yet. And then you watch the branch go and see what else comes forth and see what the flowers and then the fruits are. And I think 15 years may seem like a lot to the people who did so much with this, but in light of what you have begun, it's amazing.
Okay, so you listen whatever you would like to share with us about your article there. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And I just want to begin by saying thank you to the people of Sudan who welcomed people from all over the world, and to thank the religious women and men who listened and were in conversation with the bishops of Southern Sudan and started asking what might we hear together. It truly is an incredible example of listening to the Spirit and communal discernment. So what I was invited to do was to really look at community and do some reflecting on community in light of everything that's in there. And I do want to thank Sister Truso Kure. Your reflections are profound and need to really be looked at in so many ways. And as we're all saying, there's so much here, and there's a way that all of you who've been part of this are both a witness of what happens when we take seriously the Spirit's call, and also to hear ad experimentum get lived out, and then what the benefits are of constantly reflecting on what this means. So a lot of this is probably more ad intra, so looking at some of the community pieces of it, but I think they all have implications, because community will always be a way in and a way out. And so I simply offer a few reflections, and I'm going to use 6 slides that might just give some visual to it. And I have to thank you for the privilege of reflecting and having the time and space and the reading material to look at what you have done. I heard about Solidarity with South Sudan early on from Sister Joan Muma, who would be at conferences and speak to this. And I found it lit a fire in me, but in a whole different way today. In light of what's happening and what the calls in the world are, and in light of what the call is to consecrated life. So allow me to just offer you a little bit of an outline of the chapter, just briefly. All right. So truly, looking at this as grace, growth, and call, I just kept praying with what was emerging as I was reading and reflecting and looking at your wonderful website as well. And it's so clear the Spirit's effort in this is being heeded, is being listened to, and people are walking with the Spirit. So I used the poem from Denise Levertov, who says, "We have only begun to imagine the fullness and of life. How could we tire of hope? Because so much is in bud." And we see buds go in different spaces. And so thank you. Thank you for all of you who just risked believing and responding. This is what our call is as missionary disciples and also as religious. So I looked at this in 3 parts, and my reflections were beginning with the abundant graces and that whole sense of, what do you want me to do for you? And it's that this was really God's call, Jesus's call, asking us, what is it that you're seeking? And Sister Carolyn, I could listen to you for hours and days, and probably all the rest of you as you're sharing. But as you're offering your context, you were trying to listen to this, but it was very powerful that this was done in the midst of also a living response to the passion for Christ and the passion for humanity that came forth. And I just am going to read a few pieces from there, because I found what you're creating, all of you and the people of South Sudan, is a response to what you had hoped in this, and maybe beyond that. But in the document, it says there was a desire to be born anew. This is consecrated life. Of understanding the fundamental importance of our mission, realized in accord with our particular and shared charism. Finding prophetic new initiatives. Having an option for the lowly, for the excluded. And Sister Teresa Curry says it so powerfully. It's a place with political fragility, but there's incredible richness of the people and the land. So being there in the midst of this, and searching for both communion and community, and seeking to live in a world where consecrated life is truly incarnate, truly seeks to become that word made flesh. And so I found that, and the desire of, a Sudanese man who happened to go on a workshop on reconciliation, and then being a bishop, to see all of this and to create something is quite profound. I was moved by all the reflections I was reading that people really sought to encounter. Pope Francis talks about this, but you were talking about this well before, to truly know one another. You were building a community of communities, and then also seeking to create that among the people. And I was reading where the people were saying, this is what we've learned from you. This is how much you taught us. I'm sure there's a lot of spaces, and that would be wonderful to read. What have the people taught you, and how might that continue? And I was moved by the fact that community here had to be created with intention. In religious life, sometimes we just happen to be where we are. This was a space where people may have landed in one spot, but everyone was living with people that were not in their congregations. And so what did it mean to create community? You were already asking those questions, and to do it with intention, and knowing that intention will create tension, but that's part of the growing that goes with it. So I was just naming in there some of the abundant graces in there. And I think today the invitations that simply further where you already are, and I quoted from New Wine and New Wineskins, and also in Fratelli Tutti, but the question of context is going to continue to come. And New Wine and New Wineskin says, new poverties question the conscience of many consecrated persons and press traditional charisms to respond in new and generous ways to these new situations and the new rejects of history. Out of this reality, new forms of presence and ministry in many existential peripheries have blossomed. You're an example of it. Not to be forgotten are the proliferation of volunteer initiatives in which laity and religious men and women are involved in this rich synergy of renewed apostolic dynamism, thus rendering more effective the responses to the great challenges of our time. So it truly is just remarkable. And I just beg of you to continue to reflect on what has been and what is for you now, because those are the spaces that with the synodality efforts, that's where we are saying, how do we do more efforts? How do we find new ways? So you are already doing this, and the invitation is, what more? How else are you inviting us? And so here, as you did encounter, the invitation is to deepen and widen, and to find ways to deepen that as far as mutuality. So all of these terms we can certainly develop, but what does that look like, encounter among and with the people and with the new groups that you're with? And living community with intention is always going to ask us whose intentions and what does that look like? So grace, abundant. It truly was wonderful to read so much of what was there. And what you've also modeled and witnessed for us is that community is always going to call us to ongoing growth. So we're being fed, we're asking to be fed, but we're also seeking to feed, and we feed one another ultimately, right? One of the places I found really reflective was the call to prayer. And there was both the sense that prayer is the sine qua non. We cannot do this life without prayer, and needing to do not only personal prayer, but also communal prayer. And the need for that, the call of that. And at the same time, there was real honesty in saying, at times I'm just exhausted. So you're dealing with a reality that is fraught with risk, danger, exhaustion for the people you're with, and also for the whole country. And so being honest to what impact has that had on your prayer? What has that moved in you? And how did the community engage that? Another area that was throughout all the readings I had the opportunity to engage, and from hearing from so many of you, was also that invitation to deepen dialogue. There was a space where every community has to say, so, here we are, we've had our first so many months, and that's in places without a war that may be going on. But saying then, now, what does this mean to us? And you've been very clear that people around you kept looking and saying, you're not related. You come from different cultures, different contexts, you're men and women. How do you do this? How do you manage? And you have a real witness to offer us in this. I also found that you were expanding community. So even from the people who were the directors of the programs, you were opening up spaces in there, but your spaces also had to be opened. And there's something profound in that. And I invite you to continue to invite us to deeper reflection on that. And the reflections with that were simply little pieces in the midst of it was, how were the realities impacting your prayer? And how are your charisms impacted? So what does it mean to be a De La Salle Christian brother with the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur? What does it mean to be a school sister of Notre Dame with the Salesians? How did your charisms impact one another? And I think there's a real richness in asking, did the reverberations find their way to your congregations? What might that be? Another certainly reflection on this is if we're going to try to live across cultures, countries, congregations, continents, gender, generations, one of the things that will happen is that we're being invited to something totally new. And if we take that on and do not simply stop at we're multicultural. I live with people from different cultures or generations, but really what you're inviting us to, and the call is to say, how do we ever more deeply move toward interculturality, which is a very different thing than just bringing all those pieces together. And I invite, for the next 15 years, what is that call, and what are you finding in there? And the last piece is, in light of expanding community, that feeding of the multitude. I really have this sense in it that after they were fed and they helped each other as well, they went home and they were probably walking with one another and sharing. And so all had something to offer one another, including when things became difficult, when they found themselves knowing that this man was crucified. And as they were still trying to understand together, what does it mean when we say he is risen? So all of those pieces just are parts of the community's calls to ongoing growth, right? And again, here, it's the people that will continue to move us in our prayer, in our way of dialoguing. And so what have you learned on all levels, and what are you learning? So these are simply lenses, because there is so much happening, and they just, as I work with religious life, they just keep telling me what you've done and what you're in the midst of is such a spiritually rich space. And just the third piece, what's calling us forth? And it's solidarity. In some ways, it seems very much like solidarity and synodality are linked here. There were times where I was rereading this and going, I could say that about synodality. And so I think you were already engaged in that. And that whole sense of what does that mean? And here, there was regular reflection that I just want to continue to invite you to, on how consecrated life evolved and what that means as we say we're not just collaborators, but that we're in communion with the wider people of God. And second, a lot of this calling forth is about working at the edges for peace and reconciliation and healing. And I'm seeing that you're saying that as well. And Pope Francis is certainly seeking that as he prepares to visit you. But what is that invitation for religious life today, for consecrated life, and the entire people of God, to work at the edges of peace for reconciliation and healing? Something is calling. And so what is it that you offer? And the synodal journey, what you are about is already the synodal journey. And I think the rest of us are hoping to walk alongside you and listen and learn, but also to be, how may we each offer and engage with you? So just a few reflections with it. The questions that move me forth are, what would this communion, deep theological communion, look like beyond just collaboration? So something is emerging, we keep reading that in all that you're writing. And then the efforts at peace and reconciliation and healing, it just made me wonder in my own work too, how might all that you're about have that as integral to it? How might everything include that? And so you are doing the workshops, and so many hundreds and thousands of people are involved in them. I wonder what's being invited today, if you could reflect on that. And again, the synodal journey is calling all of us. And I found myself just wondering, I wonder what that circle looks like with everyone in it, with the bishops, with the different administrators. And because you're asking this, and you're saying, as Sister Pat did in her introduction too, that something has begun, and it's asking all of us, because it is that peace that you believe in, and it's not one that the rest of us have come to fruition and completion in living, but you have something to offer. And so I close with the closing of that poem. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud. So thank you. You make me just eager to someday staying alongside you. But in the meantime, we're with you in any way we can be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maria, for your deep reflection. Also, because it was not only a theological language, but also there was poetry here. The language of dreaming and imagining that something new is being born, something is emerging, something new is arriving. Thank you very much, Mary. And next, we're going to invite Father José Cristo Rey García Paredes, who wrote also part of an article for this last part, towards a new paradigm. José, is a new paradigm really emerging in religious life? In the solidarity with South Sudan in some ways is contributing to this new paradigm?
At the least, is a mirror in which we can find new traits of a new paradigm. I would like in this very moment to start with my experience. One day, this time more or less, I received a telephone call from my general superior. Father Jim was with him, and they invited me to make a theological reflection on the experience of South Sudan. For me, it was a challenge how to study consecrated life, not from books, from ideas, from the magisterium documents, but from the real experiences. And immediately I started to receive a lot of information regarding what you were doing there in South Sudan, the very beginning, then the development, then the new possibilities, and also the difficulties. For me, to touch this reality was like a calling from God in order to think in a different way. I was part of the theological committee of the International Congress 2004, the first initiative of the two union of superiors, women and men. And in that Congress, we dream a new way of thinking consecrated life, not only as consecration. Our idea was to focus our way of life on passion, passion for Christ, passion for the people. That Congress, which took place in Rome, as you know, has its fruits in you, in this experience of South Sudan. The two unions wanted to make possible the dream of that Congress, International Congress of Consecrated Life, passion for Christ, passion for humanity. Then the main purpose of my book was, after reading and making mine the projects that you have developed there in South Sudan, to reflect again about consecrated life. I would like to share now with you, if it is possible, the main features of a new consecrated life coming from that Congress 2004. You see here a mental map. Let me, yes. In which we can find the main characteristics of consecrated life according to that Congress: passion for Christ, passion for humanity, consecrated life in contemporary and prophetic key. What image of God? What background theology? And the image of God was before all pneumatological, the perspective of the Holy Spirit as the main actor and protagonist of mission nowadays, present everywhere, not only in our churches, not only in our communities, but all over in the world. Then a Christological approach, a very interesting Christological approach, and a theocentric vision. And at the same time, against all kinds of idolatries. And at the same time also the thirst for the sacred that it is present now in the world. So this was the first of all departure point. What image of God? What background theology? The second, how is consecrated life described and with what categories? Beyond theological reflection. Consecrated life has appeared in that Congress only from departing from experiences, stories. It was very, very interesting to know that consecrated life was alive in very different countries all over the world. We have received contributions from everywhere of the world in which consecrated life has presented different faces. And the second point was that we perceived that consecrated life is more than consecrated, is passion, is prophetic passion. And so the vision of consecrated life, what has appeared in that Congress, was a passionate consecrated life, a consecrated life with very, very prophetic traits. And the third point was mission-shaped communities, communities in which not they do a mission, but mission integrate communities in its dynamism, communities shaped by mission, not mission-shaping communities. No, not communities shaping mission, but mission, the mission day shaping communities. And in this perspective has appeared consecrated life in a very interesting way. And I have perceived in the project of South Sudan that this was accomplished in your proposal and in your actions and in your projects. I would like now to read only the conclusion of my article in this wonderful book that for me is a story but interpreted also from different perspectives, from a biblical perspective, from a spiritual and communitarian perspective, and theological perspective. In my conclusion, I said, after a long time of community and congregational missionary projects, quite particularized in institutes and religious communities, a new model is beginning to emerge, the ecclesiology of shared and communitarian mission, understood as the mission of a church going forth. Differences do not separate, but they are interconnected. This is a characteristic. Differences are inside, but there are not disconnections, but interconnections. But unity is not monolithic, but polyhedral. The initial surprise of this new model, if shocking, gradually dissolves like snow before the heat, darkness before the daylight. I have experience in your stories. How you find difficulties with the bishops, difficulties with the way of structuring your communities, a lot of difficulties also in how to understand your mission in rural mission, educational mission, healing mission. The story of solidarity with South Sudan tells us of such an experience, pioneering and very significant for consecrated life and for understanding mission and the communities shaped by the mission from a new paradigm. The story that this collective work offers us speaks us of intercongregationality. Is not only a reflection about intercongregationality, but a real intercongregational purpose. God has called not only one congregation, but different congregations very, very obedient to the calling of God at the same time, creating intercongregationality, not only intercongregationality of men, of women, but of men and women together. Second characteristics of this collective work was harmonization and symphony of Garrisons in community and in intercharismatic mission. Intercharismatic is another trait, not only intercongregational, interstructural, but a symphony of Garrisons. And this is not easy. You know that difficulties will appear during this process of harmonization. This choir, this choral mission is not easy, but you have intended that. Shared mission of a church going forth, which goes beyond the consecrated life, and it is expressed temporally in shared mission with the laity and with their diverse forms of life. Not only intercongregationality, intercharismatic gathering, but at the same time, different forms of Christian life, all together in a real process of mission. And also, what is very, very interesting, in my opinion, multi-territorial mission. It's not a mission only for a parish. It's not a mission for only in favor of a human community. Multi-territorial mission, which is not only aimed at a particular place, village, city, or regional area, but at the whole nation, and therefore shows itself to be of help to an episcopal conference responsible for it, and even to those who lead the emerging peoples. So this process in a nation what is in a crisis of identity, is recovering its own identity. At the same time, this mission was addressed to the Episcopal Conference, not only to a bishop, and also to the whole territory. This is, in my opinion, something new. And I think that purposes or projects like this should be in the future made and offered. This is a new paradigm of mission as the Holy Spirit is inspiring us. Basically, what this emerging model presents us with is a new ecclesiality, a new understanding of the church, a missionary church, a church in the mission of the Spirit. The ecclesial communities in mission and shaped by mission are constituted for this very reason as communities in special mission, or for special missions in challenging emergencies. So mission for emergencies in humanity. These communities in special mission have different charismatic specialities, with the presence of women and men, lay and ordained ministers. Such special missions have their beginning and their end. Not only a mission forever, but a mission with a point of departure and also a point of saying hello. They are maintained for a period of time in spite of the inevitable departures of discharges. In this model of special mission, there is no room for charismatic or congregational narcissism. The protagonism that hides the only protagonism is the protagonism of the Holy Spirit. This way of being church overcomes institutional frontiers, but it does not erase or dilute charismatic identities. It interconnects them for a shared mission carried out in the name of the people of God. You are there in the name not only of a congregation, not only of the two unions of the general superiors, but in the name of the whole people of God. Up to now, everything has come from the consecrated life, in the case of South Sudan, from the higher levels. In my opinion, what I feel reading your experiences is that a new vision of mission has emerged. And that new way of thinking mission, for a time, not forever, is what we have to maintain and spread all over our planet. This is what I have feel. This is my experience with this beautiful project of the two union of the general superiors, women and men, and at the same time with your help and your presence there.
Thank you very much, Jose. I didn't introduce you at the beginning. I just want to say to everybody that Jose is a Claretian missionary and Professor Emeritus of Theology at the Pontifical University of Salamanca, and also guest professor of theology in many countries, in Spain, Brazil, the Philippines, India, and also China, and has a lot of books about consecrated life especially. Thank you for your contribution, Jose, and also opening hope for the future of religious life and for what, for the meaning of this precious project. Thank you. As I told you, the chat is open for questions for those who have intervened before. We have a couple of questions, but perhaps also to give time to breathe to our translator, perhaps we can take a couple of minutes of silence, and perhaps you can think if there is anything that you would like to ask to the people who have intervened before. A couple of minutes of silence. Okay, it seems that there are not a lot of questions. The first one was about, my question is where we'll be able to access or purchase the sacred book, Solidarity with South Sudan, and you receive already the answer in your chat in 3 languages. You see, you have the information there. There was a second question is asking, is the continuation of Solidarity in South Sudan open-ended? Or has no end date been set? And for that, I think Jim will help us to answer this question, probably more than those who have been speaking before. Jim, thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Emily, and thanks to all the contributors. I think it was very, very interesting just to meet you in person and to hear your reflections. To come to the question, I think from the very start, there was an end date set, or a end date, a decision date, put it that way, a decision date. There was a memorandum of understanding with the bishops of South Sudan, or Southern Sudan, and I think that was to finish in 2016. So already from the start, people were talking about a handing over process. For various reasons, that didn't happen, and it was extended to 2026. So I think we're now, and I think the board is very aware that we're coming into a period now where we're looking at that date and to see what happens afterwards. Now, it's not just a decision of solidarity to be taken unilaterally. I think it's also a decision with the bishops' conference. I think it's also a decision to be taken with congregations who continue to give personnel to the mission. So it is it's open-ended in one way because it's not yet decided what and how it will happen, but there is the idea that what has been started will be handed over at some stage to the local church.
Okay, don't move, Jim, because there is another question. As you know, Jim is the executive director of Solidarity with South Sudan, living in Juba. So he has the concrete experience touching reality there. And here there is another question saying, what is your experience working in connection with the diocese or the local church in South Sudan?
Okay, it's a very good question. First of all, I've had an experience of working in Malawi for about 13 years, and then various other countries. Nothing has been like the experience of working in South Sudan or working with the bishops and the diocese and the local church. So I think it's a whole new, unique experience because of the unique history that is there in South Sudan. So that's the first point. Second point is, since I've come, I'm only here 3 years, so I'm a relatively newcomer here. I think it is 4 new bishops out of 7 have been consecrated. So that is saying that there is a whole change in the leadership of the local church. That would have spoken about dioceses that were without bishops for a number of years, dioceses that have suffered from a lot of challenges. And I think we have experienced some of those challenges. I think also we have experienced at different levels very good contribution from particular dioceses, particular priests. Also has to be said, points of tension, but I think that's life as well. I don't know if that's a sufficient answer.
Okay. There is another question that probably you can answer is, would it be possible to name the congregations on the ground in South Sudan today? I will give you some time to think about that. Meantime, I will give another information here.
Can you just wait a second, please? Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. There is an information that is for the United States and Canada. The book is available for a donation on the website of Friends in Solidarity. And I will share the information with all of you. Okay, here you are. It's for the Solidarity Friends.org. Great contributors to solidarity with South Sudan. Thank you very much. Jim, are you ready?
I feel this is a trick question. If I forget a congregation, they might withdraw their members straight away. So I think other people can come in and assist as well. I don't have the list in front of me, but let me just start. I'll start in Juba. In Juba, I'm a missionary of Africa, so they're present. The De La Salles are present. The Mercy Sisters are present. Cabrini Sisters, the OLA, and the Claretians. Let me move on then to Yambio. We have the FMM. We have, now this is going to get difficult. I can think of names, but I can't think of congregations. Of course, the Morris Brothers. We have Our Lady of the Missions. We have, I'm stopping here now. I'm hoping somebody, I've probably forgotten about 3 or 4 congregations. I'm hoping somebody else will be able to come in.
The De La Salle brothers.
Yeah, De La Salle. Oh, thanks very much, Caroline. You're coming to my rescue here. Yeah.
Faithful companions of Jesus.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
The Holy Faith.
Holy Faith, of course. Yes, Holy Faith Sisters. Yeah. Yes. We have had up until recently the Comboni Sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Apostolic Sisters of the Sacred Heart.
I've been there. Yes. Yeah.
Peru.
Yeah. We also have the Sacred Heart Sisters local congregation. That's has one member with us.
Mary Knoll, Father Mike in Malakau.
Exactly. Yeah. Emily, by and large, it has been the international congregations who have sent members. At this stage, we are looking also to invite regional or even local congregations to join in this. More out of a sense, I suppose, well, first of all, the difficulty of finding personnel, but also about finding membership that is from the region. So I think that there's a movement there as well.
Faithful Companions of Jesus. Did we say them?
Yes.
I see Barbara in front of me. Did we mention the School Sisters? I hope we did. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So sorry if we forget any congregation
I
there.
think we should also mention the Christian Brothers. Unless it's changed, they weren't formal members of Solidarity, but they've contributed quite significantly in Yambio.
Yes.
And Vincentians and Salesians.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. Thank you very much. There is another question, Jim, that I think is also for you, because he's asking about how is Solidarity with South Sudan funded today?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. 2 main sources of funding, or shall we say 3. One is from the congregations who give directly to Solidarity, and I think that's an expression of connectedness and is very much appreciated. Solidarity from the very start began to develop relationship with donor organizations, particular Catholic donor organizations, but also other ones, mainly in Europe. So they have given a sizable amount of money. Then Joan Moormar and the religious superiors in the States made their own initiative, and through congregations there, through individuals there, have given a lot of money. And I think throughout the world, through personal contacts, lots of individuals have and congregations have given for particular projects, or even just generally to support Solidarity. That has been another expression, I think, of connectedness. We think about the personnel. That was a previous question, who was sending personnel, but there's quite a number of congregations and groups that are unable to give people, but are continuing to support our activities.
Okay, thank you. Claudia Nicolò put in the chat the website of Solidarity with South Sudan. There you will find also the link for the registration of today, because someone asked about that. So there is a YouTube channel, and in our website you will find the link. And I think we have answered all the questions. Is that right? Yeah, I think so.
There is a question.
Yeah, a question, yeah? Yes, please. I think someone started to talk.
Yeah, someone started to talk. I would like to make a little comment as well. I'm particularly, if you look around the people who are participating, there's quite a number of former members who had served in Solidarity in South Sudan. And I think that bears testimony to some of the theological reflection that was going on, that it wasn't just simply a work environment where people went to work. It was really, I think, where personal friendships were formed. I think it was a place of faith encounter. If you talk to the members who have been there, I think they've all considered it a privilege in their lives to be with Solidarity. So I think that's an element in this theological reflection as well, that it's not just simply kind of work or an appointment, but I think new things have happened for the people who have been there and the ones who continue to be there.
I'd agree with you, Jim. I lived for more than 2 years in Remenze with 5 sisters putting up with me, 4 of whom were much younger than myself, and I felt very virtuous about it. I don't think it was my mother's vision of religious life, but it worked very well indeed.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Bill.
And I look back on my years there as a privilege. It was a privilege to be there. And I still have, still very involved in what's going on. But it is a privilege. It was a privilege, and it still is.
Jim, I look back on it as the most wonderful 5.5 years. And to be brought out to go to central London, I must say, was far more difficult than going from Ireland to South Sudan. But it was a wonderful 5.5 years there. And still, you know, I still feel very much part of it. So it's wonderful to be able to be here at this launch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Judith Pereira would like to talk also. Judith.
Hello. I profit to greet all of you. So it's a pleasure to be here. And just hearing all what was said, no, I can share most of it. For me, it was a sense of belonging to something. I still belong. I've been living in Haiti for the last year, not now, and I dreamt about solidarity there. I think Haiti is a place very similar to South Sudan, very edge place, and nothing can come out alone. We have built a structure of 7 US congregations there because of the need of the mission, but not sharing community, just mission. And I dream about it. Now, if South Sudan has an open end, but an end, perhaps another field can be open, and Haiti could be one place for that. And I'm remembering changing statutes to be open. So it's not only South Sudan, so it's a dream. So collaborative mission can go on.
Thank
For
you.
me, it was a life-changing event. I still have contact with many people that I lived with in South Sudan, and also with many of the students. I hear from many of the students and some of our workers. I've heard from Hosanna and John Cosmos. So it's just been a very rich experience.
Mhm. Thank
And
you.
I'd like to echo that as well, Pat. Great to see you. So at the beginning, well, we have the big poster banner up in Juba. It was Imagine a Miracle. See, and we saw the miracles. And I want to say to everyone, I could feel powerfully daily the presence, the support, the loving support of people from around the world. It was tangible to me. And also, I'm still in contact too with the friends that have evolved among Solidarity members, but also among so many of the people. And it was awesome to see the leadership that developed among local peoples, that we could step back and that they continued everything and are doing it on their own, except for the funding. They don't have funding ways. So I really appreciate Friends in Solidarity, for example, who fund a lot of that, and all of you. It feels so one, even if we're not in touch. If friendships are deep, and I think we could pick up and continue from there. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe for me also, since members are giving some small witnesses, I may say that it was also my good experience working there for 2.5 years. I'm a Christian brother. I never lived in the community per se, but we collaborated very closely working in Yambio Training College, J Training College, and we lived with the community very closely. We used to visit each other, have meals together, and so on, which was a very good experience. From there, I moved to do some studies in Rome, and from there I continued with the meetings that were happening in Rome, meeting different members and so on, which was also a good experience. And it was even on my cards when I finished my studies that I want to go back to work so that was South Sudan, but my leaders had a different opinion. But hopefully maybe in the future, because I'm still young, the future is promising. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim, did you take note of that? About the leaders of the brother? Good. Someone else that would like to talk, I think.
I'd like to say something also on behalf of the pastoral team of South Sudan. I think I'm very privileged not only to belong to Solidarity with South Sudan in general, but also especially to my team, to our team of the pastoral workers. And I'm very happy about the development, the work that is being done now by Solidarity at KIT. We started the work at KIT, and I'm very hopeful because some of the people we were trying to invite to come has in fact come to KIT to help, especially the secretary sister, whom we were thinking of inviting actually to become part of our team at KIT. But I do want to, by the way, it's always been a glorious, I'm the only Vincentian who have volunteered to join Solidarity with South Sudan. And I wish I could go back, but they have other ideas. But I do wish to congratulate our team at KIT, the pastoral team at KIT, for the work that you are doing. Whether you know it or not, I do follow the things that you publish. And sometimes I get a chance to do a Google map and try to find out what is going on in KIT. because it's easy to identify Kit because I know the landmarks in Kit. So please give my regards to our regards to the people in Kit, especially to the people who are working, our staff in Kit, especially our neighbors also. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I noticed that Daniel Moschetti, former Comboni Provincial, is online here, and I think we must be very grateful to him working with Joseph Callistus for the tremendous effort to establish KIT. Well done, Daniele, because you really put so much time and effort into it whilst looking after the Combonis. I'd also think we should acknowledge not only the great work by Pat Murray in getting, and Kathy Arata in getting the project established, but I noticed also Roxanne Charis, Jorge Gallardo, Catherine O'Flynn, Craig Francis have all been online this evening, and they were very hard-working early board members to get the whole project established. So our thanks to them too.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something too.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I agree that for me, it was also a faith encounter, the experience I had, especially in Yambio, working with Sister Margaret Scott and other community members of the Solidarity. That experience was very rich, and I still carry it with me as faith encounter. And I still follow what happens in especially Yambio and relate well still with many of the students on WhatsApp. And I pray I'll have another opportunity to be there again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sister. That was not planned, but I think is the best way of ending. Barbara, do you want to talk?
Well, I would just add that Father Jim and others have done so much with the religious conference, all the communities in South Sudan, the local communities, and all those who've come in from elsewhere. That's added a great strength to the work.
Yes, thank you. And John, please.
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity and for the book that's been written. I've been associated with Solidarity since 2013 when I spent time on the ground and then was asked to come back to the US. So Friends in Solidarity is the US partner to Solidarity with South Sudan. And we've been in existence since 2016 and still going strong. So we're grateful for all the work being done on the ground in South Sudan and privileged to be the US partner.
Thank you.
I would like to acknowledge some of the priests from, especially in Western Equatoria and Yambio. I continue to have contact with Father Charles, Father John Bamboyo, Father Joseph Megiddo, Father Morris, and I think that has been a wonderful connection with those priests that used to come to visit at Solidarity and were huge support to us in Yambio.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think Sister Teresa would like also to say a word. Sister Teresa?
No, it's not saying a word. I had a question.
Ah, okay, good.
Somebody asked a question. The person said, I think it is Martin Binyenya. The question is, what are the possible ways of helping the South Sudanese people to become actors rather than subjects? I think for me, that's a crucial question. And I just want to, what I feel is, as I'm listening, the solidarity among the team members is very strong. in the sharing. That is very strong. But how do we shift? Are we talking about a paradigm shift? How do we shift it to the stage in which the solidarity with the people becomes the subject of discourse? I don't know how to say this. And maybe the way I want to put it is that I think attitudes are very, very important. They are really crucial. And when I'm sharing this, I think of this play, My Fair Lady. We have Henry Giggins. I've forgotten the name of his partner, who are working with Lisa Doolittle. During does anybody remember his name, the other person's name? Henry Giggins is the one trying the rain, inspiring, false minded, applying. And I guess he has a friend with him, but he is really the one training Lisa to speak the Queen's English. And he's always calling her Lisa, Lisa, Lisa. When Lisa finally becomes the princess and comes out, he turns around and greets the friend and said, "Thank you very much for what you did for me." And he said, "I'm not the one who trained you." So it was Henry. He said, "No, you always call me Miss Doolittle." And that is the title that is given to ladies. So I was responding to the title you gave me. Whereas Henry was training him and was calling him Lisa, which is what you call girls. So that is it. And I have spoken, that for me is, so people respond to the spontaneous dignity, the love, the worth. And I have spoken about Jesus saying, "I no longer call you servants, I call you friends." Friend was a title in which you kind of raise somebody like the sons of the Maccabees. He said, "You'll be friends of the king." But that is not relationship. When he rose from the dead, he called us his siblings. So the attitude is crucial. And then what he did, maybe I take it out of South Sudan. I said, how come that within 3 years, 3 to 6 years, some say 6 years, Jesus was able to train people who transformed the world? And how many years has Africa been helped and it's getting worse? In 1960, what is it? Secam celebrated its golden jubilee, just Secam alone. And we're still holding out cups and things. So there is something that needs to be done. And then not only that, but Jesus empowered these fishermen and ladies, women who had no legal status, and they became actors. And because of them,
when it sees our hand up, it's supposed to unmute us.
There is need for us to look at what is actually happening, to be able to accompany, to be able to teach, to be able to help people to know that they can, to be able to know that they are, we are partners with them and not helpers. I don't know. So that's for me is a challenge of this paradigm shift. And I think it's a challenge of really proclaiming the gospel, making disciples of all the nations. And then the other challenge is that while I am trying to get up, I am being, it's like a puppet. I'm juggling the puppet is being under, and we say, puppet, don't juggle yourself. But then what is helping the puppet to juggle themselves is not addressed. So the way our nations, the stake they have, not just in South Sudan, but in Africa, it's harrowing. And for all of us who are proclaiming, we are all brothers and sisters of each other, sent to proclaim the gospel, there really needs to be a paradigm shift, attitudinal shift, a mental shift, to be able to let the gospel, work. And maybe the last example I give is the paralytic at the pool of Bethesda. Is there in my book. This paralytic is there at the source of healing for 38 good years. Other people come and get healed. And that parable is a symbol of the Israelites. They were just about to enter the promised land. They said they can't do it, and they are for us, and we would rather die here. So he said, okay, you die there for 38 years. They spend there just at the threshold. So, but Jesus said, do you want to be made whole? And he begins to say, oh, I don't have the same complaint. Say, if that is your problem, take up your life and take up your mat and walk. And of course, he didn't do that, because the moment they said you shouldn't carry your mat on the Sabbath, he said, it's not me, it's the other. But Jesus met him again. So we need to believe that people can become Miss Doolittle and not just Lisa. We need to believe that these people can really be the people that God wants them to be. We need to believe that we can help them to see that fighting and killing each other is not enough for them. And you know what? The problem with South Sudan started the moment they became independent. So as long as they are continuing to fight with one another, it is listed there in the book. The Chinese have 65%, the Indians have 35%, these people have 30%. And meanwhile, the people are fighting themselves. It doesn't make sense. It's not okay. It's not okay. So this for me is, I don't have the answers, but I think together we need to ask some very solid questions and say, what do we do if we really believe in participating in the mission of Jesus? Because the ground for solidarity, as I've tried to say, is God's solidarity with humanity, which has brought about a new creation, a new humanity, a new creatures. And we were supposed to carry that to the whole world, to proclaim not just to the receivers, but also to the donors, because they too are children of God. So that's what I would say. And I think I leave that.
Okay, thank you very much, Teresa. Perhaps Jim would like to say a word about that.
Okay, thank you. I can also see people in kit raising their hands as well.
Okay.
Just allow me first of all to make a response. Sister Teresa, listening to you, can I send you the application form for Solidarity straight away? Because I think you have highlighted what is the essential challenge that Solidarity was formed to address, and that's capacity building. And that is how to transform people. Now, there is an element, I think, in all the projects of technical training, but there's a very large element, and you referred to it there, about attitudes, and I think it is about invitation to personal transformation, and that becomes important. Today we're celebrating Solidarity, but I think it is very good to bear in mind that we have to be very humble. We are a very small initiative in a country that has very many challenges. And all as we can do is those that come in contact with us or that are entrusted to us, how we can somehow hope to be, to invite them to some sort of transformation and to be transformative elements when they are finished with us. I'm very aware that we have been in the country for so long, 16 years. You can say really, what have we achieved overall? I think as in all religious, we have to be very humble about that. But in the end, it is an experience, I think, of a technical experience, a personal experience, but hopefully one of grace and faith. So maybe I just stop there.
Good, thank you very much. It's time to finish, and I think it has been a wonderful time together. We started with that, with the book, and we finished sharing stories and faces of people who are inside this book. Stories that are told here have a face, and has been wonderful to see all of you. I think Aniedi wants to say something before ending. Yes?
Please, it's not me. I say Daniel Moschetti has been waving his hand.
Who is that?
Daniel, Father Daniel.
Father Daniel, could you open the microphone and start talking?
Yeah. I just open, yes. First of all, I'd like to greet many of you, because I know many of you been in South Sudan for sure. And I thank very much Bill, Manny, Annette, Barbara, so many. Thank you very much to all of you to be in South Sudan, first of all. Been a beautiful experience in my 7 years there as a provincial also. And I have beautiful memories of each one of you in different places, in different moments. And for sure, the challenge is that Sister Teresa, she was posing, I believe, one thing that I found when you come in a country like South Sudan is that less knowledge of the history of this country. You know, for each missionary, for us is more than 150 years. We have Comboni, 160 years that we are there since the time of Comboni. And for sure, 40 years of war before this civil war, the last one of 2013 up to 2018, and still not yet. And I'm sure I follow very much the situation almost every day. They tell you it's not an easy thing to be there. And I'm in solidarity with you for sure at this moment, and my confrères and sisters that are there, because as a Comboni, we are there since a long time. But we welcome very much the presence of solidarity when they came. Kati, of course, we have to remember the first one who came, really wonderful situation. And also Kit is really a dream that we have dreamt together. And as the Rasas also, this congregation that we have restarted after so many years. And of course, with also the great help of Mani and the team of the time still there for sure. And I greet you and push you and encourage you to continue, because Justice and Peace, Sister Teresa, was at the heart of, anyway, of solidarity and also of our heart as a Combonis for sure. And it's not easy in a country where dictatorship is there since a long time. Bashir before and after today, in these days with Kir or whatever other 10 groups of rebels that are still at the table sharing the power, but there is nothing to come. And it's not easy to work. Sorry to say, but also I just add one other thing, that Mani and the team, they are really trying to do and to change also the way of thinking in the church. We have dealt with the old generation of bishops, and this was not easy because we are coming from this bishop of the war, of 40 years of war. And of course, this is something that remains in the memories and in the shock and the healing process that have been passed through. Then so many workshops really, and still long way to go, because what this 5 years of war has created a worse situation than before, and still the process of healing is not yet, not even already started in a certain way, because we continue to repeat it. So you said, Teresa, before that South Sudan is Christian. Is not even 50% are Christians, but still there is the way to empower them. This is the right way, the right person, that word to use it, to empower the people. And to empower the people means spiritually for sure, but also with education. This is one of the lowest rate of education in the world. But again, what they are trying to do, solidarity, is wonderful in different places. They have passed through many problems, also themselves, like us, but still in solidarity, exactly. So I wish you all the best, really. I'm very happy to have this chance to be in this celebration, your celebration. I hope to be back in South Sudan after some years, because now I'm working with the migrants here in the south of Italy, after having been in UN for Momo knows for a while, but the red carpets are not for me. And for sure, I'll be back now with the migrants, African migrants, thousands of them in the south, Castelvolturno near Naples. Very tough situation in Italy for them. And they're, of course, still in solidarity. Yeah. There is a small community here in Sicily, done by 4 congregations who are living the same spirit of solidarity with South Sudan, with the migrants near Pozzallo and in Sicily, Modica. And this is something that has to be proposed specifically in the northern part of Europe, and I mean, northern part of the world, not only of Europe, but also of us. Because we are becoming older and older, And for sure, this solidarity together as a congregation can help very much to continue to be vital and to be renewing ourselves also the different charisms. Maybe we need to think much more also in US, in Canada, in Europe, to have this congregation, inter-congregational projects in of re-evangelization. This is my proposal. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. So to finish, last word. I think that Annette wanted to say a word, but I didn't realize that was moving the hand. Annette, would you like to talk?
Offered was a very good perspective that the whole reality of war and trauma certainly makes a big difference on how whatever is done is received, and helping that healing process is most important. And it happens in our own transformation by being there with the people, but it also is an insight into how anything needs to be done with that awareness.
Thank you very much. So we finish here, and with a word of thanks to all of those who have collaborated to prepare that, the team here in Rome, in the office, and those who have some words share with us, and also all the faces that came at the very end. Thank you very much, and see you again, I hope very soon. All the best.
Bye bye.